Hello and welcome to the paper of the week. My name is Matthew Legg. No, it's not. It's Steve and Eddie. It's Steve doing paper of the week. Woohoo! I did the first one, by the way. So we're going to be doing paper of the week, and paper of the week is just a snapshot of what's come out in the medical literature very recently that may interest people out there. And it's simply, something that we come up with from time to time. Now today we're going to talk about a very controversial topic called autism. And autism spectrum disorders. Now, just for those who don't know what autism is, it's a group of symptoms, and it's called a spectrum of autism, and it's to do with children, and it's usually boys that have autism on a ratio of 4:1, and where they have social, behavioural disorders. Now, it can be from not being a good socialiser to being not being verbal, not being able to communicate at all. So there's different, and that's why they call it a spectrum. And it's a very mysterious disease. We don't know what causes it directly, but we've found another clue to the puzzle now. Now I'll give you some background. Basically, there's 10 to 20% of the causes of autism are genetic. So 10 to 20% are genetic. So there's mostly environmental. Now it could be that those genes don't just give you autism because they only make you susceptible to autism, because the autism rate is about 1 in 68 children in America, so about that in Australia as well. So just round it off, 2%, 1 to 2%. And so if the genes for autism are in 10 to 20% of kids, only about 1 in 10 of those kids will go on to develop autism. So if you're born with autism genes, you're a 1 in 10 chance of getting autism. So there's something triggering the autism from those genes. Now what we know is that there are environmental risk factors. We know that exposure to pollution can cause autism. We know that exposure to pesticides. We know that women who have a severe infection during their maternal cycle or inflammation during pregnancy is very much associated with it. We know that if you don't breastfeed, then you've got a much higher chance of getting autism. Low carnitine levels in the brain are associated with autism. We know that taking SSRIs during pregnancy is associated with autism, particularly the first and second trimester. So if you're on Prozac's classic one, then that's also anti-epileptic medication, valerianic acid, that also can cause autism. We also know there's a strong, weird immune thing going on with autistic kids. They have a higher level of a thing called T helper 17. Now T helper 17 is one of the 4 CD4 cells that are charged with looking after your immune system. Okay, you've got the T helper 1s that can kill intracellular viruses and parasites. You've got T helper 2, which kills large parasites in your gut like worms and that sort of thing. T helper 1 is for viruses and bacteria, so small things. And then you've got your T helper 17s, which kill bacteria on the surface of your skin or in your gut. So that's high in autistic kids. Now, that tells us that their immune system is trying to fight off something on their skin or in their gut. Now, weirdly, gastrointestinal dysfunction is also very, very common in autistic kids, and over 50% of them have these overt GI problems. So there's something going on in the gut to do with autism in these kids. Now, what is it? Nobody's known until about the 26th of November 2018 when this report was coming out. And it may not be the only answer, but it's one of them. So basically what they found in this study was that they looked at autism and they measured their blood, and they basically found that in autistic kids that they have elevated levels of D-arabinitol, which is a sugar alcohol that's raised when someone's got antibodies to Candida albicans. So what this study is basically saying, I'll summarise it for you and I'll go backwards here. Basically, that the fungal overgrowth of Candida albicans is associated with autism. It's because and this is not really shock horror news, because fungal overgrowth has been implicated in inflammatory bowel diseases, schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Because we now know there's a strong link between the gut and the brain. And it's a big nerve that grows there called the vagus nerve. So we know there's a huge connection between the gut and brain. So this study actually positively associated those at a ratio, or what they call an odds ratio, of 3.45. In other words, the people with these antibodies, these kids, they're 345% more likely to be autistic. So it's an incredible association. The p-value is below 0.05, so it's clinically significant or scientifically significant that these people have this antibody to this fungus. Now, does that mean if you wipe out Candida, the autism goes away? We haven't got that far yet, but we're onto it. You see how we're onto it? I mean, we know that over 50% of kids have, high levels of gut disorders. We know that there's lots of T helper 17, which is a gut-derived cytokine, a gut-derived CD4 cell, which is a T helper cell. And this was discovered in 1976 when they first discovered that they gave the rubella vaccine to kids with autism and they didn't get any antibodies to the rubella vaccine. So they have very poor antibody response. But yet, in these cases, they have antibody responses to, this Candida albicans. So it's an incredibly interesting situation. But the T helper 17, which is high in autistic kids, points towards a gut infection. They all have GI upsets, it is extraordinarily important that even some probiotics help these kids. So this is another piece in the puzzle that Candida albicans could be associated with the development of autism in kids, and more importantly, Candida albicans can be treated. Now, it goes without saying that anyone with any disorder should have a healthy gut first, and I think now we've got evidence to show that kids with autism need to be restricted from sugars and refined carbohydrates at least. That's going to help them anyway, and maybe treat their gut first because it's highly linked to the brain. So very interesting. We're going to watch this space definitely and come back to you with any other further research. So thanks for your time today, and we'll see you next week.